It was really feeling this call. Like there's something out there for me. There's something that I'm meant to do. Is it helped me recognize how little my vision was, how low my self-esteem was. I didn't feel like I was anyone or had done anything worthy enough of inspiring anybody. I was so unhappy that I would get my kids ready, take them to school in the morning, and then I would go and sit in my car and I would cry because I hated this job. I have pictures of my first office in my basement, and it was dark and it was terrible. But I look back at those pictures and I had so much joy. I was so happy. I was doing what I wanted to do and what I was meant to do. What I'm doing is I offer one-on-one coaching, program coaching for entrepreneurs who want to get paid to speak. And I'm really passionate about helping women get paid to speak and at higher rates.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint podcast. I am your host, Drew Griesel of Primal Wellness Coaching. Today's episode is a little bit different. Our guest today is Jessica Dumas, and Jessica is a professional speaker and speaker coach. She is the host of a radio show, and she's also the host of a podcast, a confidence and communication podcast. Jessica has received a number of awards and recognitions for her professional expertise. So we are very excited to learn from Jessica, to hear her story, and to hear what guidance she can provide to me and to all of you as far as our ability to show up and present ourselves in our best way, which is absolutely an aspect of wellness. So Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Drew. I'm excited to see what we'll come up with in our conversation that's going to be good for your listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to really just start with your story because you've got a pretty compelling backstory, which, you know, kind of the beginnings of what took you to where you are today. And for the listeners, just so you know, Jessica does have a TEDx on YouTube. So I will link to that in the show notes as well at the superhumanblueprintpodcast.com. So check out her TED Talk, but we'll give you the Cliff Notes version now and see how that kind of ties into what we're talking about today and everything in between. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about how you ended up where you are now.
Sure. Thanks again for having me. Really excited to chat about it. So I am a professional speaker and speaker coach. I've been speaking for 10 years and I've been getting paid to speak for 10 years, and I've been a certified coach for 10 years. So this is definitely very intentional what I did to create the life that I'm living now. I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. This is the only place that I've lived. And I'm First Nation, and to listeners who are familiar or unfamiliar with First Nation people in Canada, we often, because of lots of reasons that we won't get into, grow up in areas that are full of poverty, and where there's poverty, there's crime. And so I had a really challenging childhood and youth. As a young adult, I lost my younger brother to a police shooting in Winnipeg, which is a city that I really love. And so even just, stating those few facts, I'm sure that you can get a glimpse of the challenges that I've had to overcome. I had my first son when I was really young. Their dad and I got married. I had 3 sons in total, ended up getting divorced. I raised 3 sons on my own. And I started to really think about, like, what would it take to just be happy? What would it take to just not have all of these challenges, or look at the challenges that I have in my life in a way of, this is what's going to stop me from living a life that I want, but how can I overcome these and really be able to create a life that I want? And so through volunteering, I had so many opportunities to get involved with my community, learn to love my city, and chair meetings and events, which put me on stage in front of hundreds and sometimes thousands of people. And eventually I was like, I want to get good at this. And I had no coach. There was no speaker coaches that I knew of at the time. And I just coached myself. I was like, I want to get really good at this. And so I practiced. And because I had lots of opportunities to be in front of audiences, I would keep challenging myself to do better. And one day coming off the stage, people already knew me as a coach. I had at 3 separate experiences, people coming up to me and saying, I want you to coach me to do what you just did
Okay.
on that stage.
So they brought the job to you.
And I was like, this is what I'll do. And I've been doing it since. So it's been, I niched in speaker coaching since 2019. And I still love it today. I still love it so much.
So you followed your passion into representing your community, and then that led to a career in professional speaking. And I was going to ask you that question because being a professional speaker and speaking coach, it's got to start somewhere, right? Most people don't just say, I want to speak on stage without something to speak about. Usually
Right.
you have some passion or career or whatever that you're following. So
Right.
yours started with wanting to be more involved in the community and really represent the interests of the community.
It did, absolutely. I love to volunteer. I love to be a part of people gathering. And I think I was always trying to figure out what my part in that was, because I actually started out as a event planner. And then I
Oh, okay.
realized I want to be the event.
Yeah. And shout out to event planners because depending on the scale of the event, that is a tough job.
It is a tough job. Yeah, I've worked with some really great event planners as a planner and as a speaker.
Okay. Yeah, actually, my old I lived in Australia for a little while. My old flatmate, after I left, got into event planning. She actually worked for the local government in Sydney doing event planning, and yeah, that
It's
was
a
a
fun job.
she really enjoyed it, but it was a big job.
That too, yeah, for sure.
So early on, you faced all this hardship, and then eventually that got you into a situation where you're on stage, and then there's that evolution there. But how did you take yourself from hardship to success? How did you influence yourself essentially to not allow yourself to be brought down just by the conditions of what was going on around you?
That's a really good question. And it was really feeling this call. So really feeling like there's something out there for me. There's something that I'm meant to do. And as a young person, this was not like I never had any sort of like supportive conversations or anyone that was telling me that you can grow up and you could do whatever you want to do. Like I don't remember ever hearing that in my life. But I had this passion and I just thought, you know what, this is coming from somewhere. And so for several years, I looked out into the world and I would, talk to people and ask people and, what do you think I should do? And now I call that canvassing. We're like canvassing,
Okay.
the world,
Sure, yeah.
trying to figure out our purpose. And one year it just, I just felt it coming from within me. And I was like, I got to start going in here. I got to start figuring out like, where is this message coming from? Because it's not coming from out in the world.
It's funny. I had a similar experience or a similar hope in that I quit a career of 10 years and went out and traveled for a year and lived in Australia for a year and figured I'd encounter some great epiphany about what I want to be when I grow up. And it didn't happen. It wasn't until several years after I came back to my old life that I kind of figured things out.
That's so interesting. And I think that's sort of the way that we're brought up, right? In our society, we go to school and we're taught the rules. We're taught how to stand in line, how to be a friend, or how to do whatever. So it's almost like we expect that there's this plan laid out for us until it doesn't fit. Right? Because
Yep.
that's probably what you were feeling too. You were out in the world looking for, where's the real Drew? What am I supposed to be doing with my
Right.
life? And no one was telling you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
I
what it
had a lot of
was.
fun, but I didn't have that epiphany. My canvassing failed. I ended up doing a lot of very silly things just to get by. But
Yeah, interesting.
yeah, but everything we do contributes to the person that we are today. But
Yeah,
that
100%.
that moment came much later, and with a lot of small hardships around me that kind of took me to the place that I needed to go to figure out what do I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
So you were out canvassing,
Hmm.
and you realized that you weren't looking outward wasn't going to do it. So how did you come to the point of, I guess it started with being more engaged in the community. Sounds like was the start of that path. So how did you get there?
Right. So I did have, I would go to some of the leaders or, people that I looked up to, and that's sort of where I got my advice on like getting involved in leadership in the community and that sort of thing. And I did that. But as I was seeking, and this might sound a little funny. People will sometimes laugh at like the law of attraction and what was that movie called The Secret, right? But
Okay.
in I think it was 2013 or so, a friend of mine brought a portable DVD over, and she's like, Jessica, you have to see this. And so she brought her kids over. I put my kids and her kids in the living room with like snacks, and we went into the kitchen and we were watching this movie on this DVD. And what that did for me
I
was
mean, you're talking about The Secret?
The Secret. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So that's what we were watching in the kitchen. And as I was listening to what everyone on the film was talking about, I kept thinking, I do those things. I already think that way. Like, what is this? How does somebody out here in the world know what I'm thinking when
Hmm.
I've had hundreds of conversations trying to almost find something that was going to inspire me the way the conversations on this film did.
Hmm.
And and so that really blew my mind.
Okay.
But what it also did for me is it helped me recognize how little my vision was, how low my self esteem was. Because even though I wanted to do all these really big things, like be a speaker, be on stage, encourage other people, I didn't feel like I could do that. I didn't feel like I was anyone or had done anything worthy enough of inspiring anybody. And so that was really where it started, and that was like the seed of so much more. I watched that film so many times until I needed more. I was like, what's the next step? There's got to
Mm-hmm.
be more, because
Right.
my spirit and everything within me was really seeking. And so the next time that I watched the film, I wrote down all of the names of all of the stars in the that were on the film that were talking about their success stories, and I read their books and I took some
Hmm.
of their programs, and I just kept digging deeper and deeper, and it was all I took a piece of something from each of those experiences and each program I took and each lesson that I took, and I just kept building.
And you created it all on your own.
I did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a hard time getting from having a dream or having an idea to not even inception of the dream or idea, but really to accepting that they can actually do it. That
Yeah.
status quo, if their life doesn't need to be status quo, that they can change status quo.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, totally. And I felt that too. I remember around that same time period, just like you, I'm, trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grew up. And one of my friends called me a job hopper because I would find a job and I'd be like, this is a really great job. And I would do it for a couple of months and I'd be like, no, this isn't it. And I'd quit. Or I would just like sit in my car and cry because now I had to go to this job. And I kept going back to, I'm being called to something and I can be scared of doing that, or I could just feel that emptiness because I'm not following that call. And so I feel like that's a choice that people have, is that call is going to keep calling you unless you really shut it up, unless you
Yeah.
really like push it away.
And people
And
do that.
and they're not happy.
Right.
Those people are not happy. They are the ones that are, they feel like they've settled, or they're in jobs because it pays the bills, and it's, this is what my plan was. I went to college for this, or whatever the case might be. But those will be regrets one
Right.
day.
Right.
Yeah.
Follow your dreams, folks.
Yes.
And we have the blueprint tie-in. So
Hmm.
we talked about creating or discovering your own blueprint, and I kind of see it as you have to discover the blueprint to your own happiness, but you have to create the blueprint to your success. So
Right.
there's definitely a component of discovery, but creation as well. So the path to discovery, I mean, that's complicated, right? I guess everyone has their own journey on the path to
Hmm.
discovery. What is it that makes you happy? What is it that makes you happy that you can actually do as a career? And
Hmm.
some people are very happy in working a good job where they have a good employer, and they're able to provide for their family, and that's great. And some people have a different type of calling, and it's really just a matter of that exploration.
Yeah. And I think it's also a balancing of the shoulds. Like we often do things because we think that we should do them.
Hmm.
And so there's the balance of finding that blueprint, discovering it. And you're right, it's going to take people lots of different ways to do that. And so one of the things that I encourage my clients to do is to try everything when it comes to healing, because that's what a lot of it is healing, giving ourselves permission to want things, because there's, we go through teenagehood, or these, adolescent years where we have to push down our desires and get real. We're going to pay taxes soon. We got to get realistic.
Boo.
and and that's where we start to learn that, okay, well, I want to do this, but I feel like I should do this. And one day what happened for me was I just decided I'm going to stop caring about what I should do, and I'm just going to try for a little while to do what I want to do, and I'm just going to see what happens. And that can be really scary because
That's
I did it as,
terrifying.
it's terrifying. I was a single mom. I'm
Right.
raising three sons on my own.
Right. I was going to ask, how did you do that with the responsibility of motherhood of three children?
Yeah, I cried a lot.
Okay. Well, that's a start, I guess.
Yeah, I cried a lot. Like, and again, it was the fear of, I could do, I had opportunities and I had really good jobs. I was making the money that I needed, and I could have stayed, but I was so unhappy that I would get my kids ready, take them to school in the morning, and then I would go and sit in my car and I would cry because I hated this job. And again, it's not that it was a bad job. Some of them were really fun and I learned a lot of really cool things. Some of the people were okay. But it was, I felt really good about the work, and I always felt good about, this is where I work, this is my career sort of thing. But I still felt like if I don't do this, I'm not going to be happy. And I've had enough in my life. Life has been hard enough, and I don't want it to be hard anymore.
Yeah.
And if I want to be happy, because that's what I believe is natural to me, to my blueprint, I believe that we're all meant to be happy, but it's the world and the shoulds and all the stresses that we pile on and that we choose to carry that are pulling us away from it. And I thought the only way that I want to live is happy. And so I had to I had to choose that, even though it's really scary that I'm going to say goodbye to this downtown job where I had this nice, office, I had an expense account, I had parking, right? All of the things that I thought that I wanted in a career. And I had to pack up my box and walk out with my belongings
Yep.
and start building an office in my dark basement. Like I have pictures of my first office in my basement, and it was dark and it was terrible. But I look back, and there were times where I didn't make any money, and there were times that I definitely struggled. And that's one of the reasons why coaching is so important for me, because I want to tell people here are some ways that you can skip all of the suffering and skip all of the challenge, and here's the map. But I look back at those pictures and I had so much joy. I was so happy. I was doing what I wanted to do and what I was meant to do.
One of the most simple hacks to improve your overall quality of life, including things like energy, immunity, mood, and more, is to get better sleep. And I am going to help you sleep better, completely free. The thing is, sleep is easy to ignore. Life gets busy and sleep loses priority. There's a problem, though. Where many of you want to sleep better, you can't seem to. The thing is, so many things have become a part of a normal lifestyle in our society, which are secretly sabotaging many aspects of our wellness, including sleep. That is why I created the Hack Your Sleep program. In this program, I am going to give you a number of low to no cost, simple to implement hacks you can start doing right now to fix your sleep. By using these tips and hacks, you will fall asleep easier, stay asleep longer, and most importantly, sleep deeper, allowing your body to cycle through the many stages of sleep multiple times throughout the night. That is how recovery happens. That is how you wake up feeling rested, energized, and ready to unleash your best self. And because you're a Superhuman Blueprint podcast listener, I am going to give you access to this course completely free. Go to hackyoursleep.net and use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. That is hackyoursleep.net, Superhuman at checkout. This will get you 100% off and on the path to getting better sleep than you've had since you were a kid. You have to kind of take a plunge, right? Because there's a mental wellness aspect of knowing that you are successful in what you're doing and you are providing for the people that depend on you. But then there is also the detraction of not doing the things that make you happy and give you fulfillment, and knowing that that's out there and that you're not doing it. I am not a life coach, so I think this is that topic is probably more up your alley. But there's interesting crossover here in what I do, because I coach fitness, right? But that's sort of evolved into wellness, and that's evolved into both physical and mental wellness. And the reason for that is people originally, I would see clients because they want to accomplish some sort of physical transformation, right? Whether it's lose weight or get fit, or just be able to accomplish something in particular related to physical prowess. But it very quickly became apparent to me that without their nutrition dialed in, then they're not going to get the results on the physical composition side. But that wasn't enough. And there were all these other things. And so that it became lifestyle. And so all of a sudden, before we get even close to crafting a workout program, we're talking lifestyle and really digging in on what are they doing in their life? How are they caring for themselves physically and mentally? Because that's a huge part of it. And a lot of the protocol that I work into the programs that I run my clients through have huge aspects of mental wellness. And that's great, but one thing that I can't really control, and as a health and wellness coach don't have a lot of influence over, is the major life decisions, right? Like, what am I doing with my career? What am I doing as a parent? And that's why I like to talk about it on this podcast, because as someone that is following my passions, and as a parent, and as someone that works with clients and sees these things and how they impact people in ways that they don't even necessarily know it's impacting them. There are a lot of tie-ins, and just the ability to make hard decisions like you made in quitting your career and kind of starting in your basement. Those are terrifying, and without a strategic approach, they may not go as planned. However, being able to say, at minimum, being able to say I tried is huge. And I'm a big proponent of. There's a book by John Maxwell, Failing Forward, and I am a big proponent of failing forward. Right, you don't progress without trying, and the more you try, the more you're going to fail, but you'll also have your successes in there.
Right.
And so how did you take your dark basement, your new career in your dark basement into speaking on stage and being a professional speaker and speaker coach?
Yeah, that's a really deep connection right there that you were making. So when I started, one of the first things that I started to do before I decided that I wanted to be on stage to encourage and empower people was I wanted to show up on social media. And at the time there were a few coaches. I don't see them online anymore, FYI, but there were a few coaches who would show up on Facebook Live, and it was probably like before Instagram was what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're dating yourself. You mentioned Facebook.
I know. 2015 is when Facebook allowed like the Facebook Live. And I was like, I want to do that because I want to have my own show. And so I would do it. I'd go live. I made a schedule for myself. And where I got all of those tools was, or one of the decisions that I made early on in my career was I'm going to treat my own entrepreneurship activities like a real business. I'm a real business. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs still struggle with, is they feel like they're just trying. Oh, I'm just trying this out. I'm just trying this out.
Okay.
And I was doing that at the time. I was just trying things out to see what would stick, but I wasn't making any like real decision on where I wanted to go. I wasn't clear on where I wanted to go.
Okay.
And because I wasn't clear, I would try these little things. I'd, try to go live and talk about this, and I would try to go live and talk about that. And if I didn't get any feedback, or if I didn't, even though we didn't use the language viral in 2015, even though I wasn't getting that, I thought I could quit because no one's going to say anything anyway. Like one person saw me go live. I could quit and just be a loser and, never try this again because I failed.
Yeah, it's very easy to be discouraged.
It's so easy to be discouraged. And I kept going back to this bigger vision, this bigger, idea that I had for my life. And I had to get really clear on what that was. And even though it was really difficult, I would clarify it a little bit every time I would, do an exercise on, what do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be successful. What does that mean to me? I get to decide what that means. And I think from a young age, I had always been able to have my core thinking was actually like really wanted something for me. That was like, I was able to tap into this inspiration that I don't know where the heck it was coming from, but I could still hear that voice. And even though my everyday thinking was really negative, and I felt like everything I did I was going to fail at, and everything I did I was a loser at, but for some reason I still had this deep inspiration that I could hear. And it was that voice that when I would lay down at night, all of these ideas would just start coming to me. And there were times where I was like, leave me alone. Like, I just want to
sounds
stop.
very disruptive.
I just want to give up. But it was ideas and dreams that would just excite me. And I would just wake up and I would just try again. And I would just try again. And I like I like using my fitness experience, which is probably not the same as yours, but I like using that when talking about goal planning and visioning and deciding what you want to do with your life, because people can understand fitness goals more
Right.
than they do a life coaching goal or,
Right.
something in my field, unless they've followed for a long time. But I had to get clear on what I wanted. And one of the ways that I use that example in fitness is I lied to myself about what I was eating, even though I was going to the gym every day and
Okay.
not losing weight. And I was like, why am I not losing weight? And even when I tried to track my food, because I knew, like, tracking your food, first of all, is hard. But
It
if you're
sucks.
really, and it
It's
sucks,
enlightening, but it sucks.
but if you're interested in doing it and you do it right without lying to yourself, that's where the magic happens.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with your big goal, dreams, vision, and all of the little things that you're doing throughout the day. Like, is this going to get you where you really want to go for your big vision?
That's a really interesting comparison. I
Yeah.
like that.
When I discovered that about myself and how I was lying to myself about what I was eating, or I was not putting it in my app when I was tracking my food because I wanted to have a beer for dinner. Well, that can't go in there.
Certainly not.
And when I started putting it in there, I was like, oh, I see what I'm doing. The pizza, the chips, all the little snacks that I was having. And I'm like, oh, okay. And when it comes to like making those big scary decisions in your career as an entrepreneur, as someone who wants to do something different, it's how are you talking to yourself? What kind of mindset tools are you using to upgrade your own mindset? And are you actually following your routines that you say that you have? I had a morning routine that I was doing really good for a really long time. And I knew that I was still staying up too late. So in the morning, even though I would do my routine, I was tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what, if I could just get a bedtime routine. And I tried that for months and months. And I realized that I liked to have wine when I was done my day with my dinner as I cleaned up. And then I'm like, at nighttime, like halfway in the tank. I can't do a bedtime routine. And so I really had to get that together and decide if I really want to be successful, I need to be aware of those little things that I'm lying to myself about.
Yeah.
And eventually I was able to do it. And
Did
I can do my bedtime routine. And I'm like, wow, like it was all on me.
And did you bring in a coach for this, or did you just figure this out on your own?
I did that on my own.
Wow. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I've been, like I said, a coach for 10 years, over 10 years. And I read a lot. I meditate, I tap. And I also really believe that if I want to be a good coach to my clients, I need to be putting my own skin in the game.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I will do it. I will do the work.
Bedtime routine is something that I am very strict on with my clients, and they don't like it at first. But once the energy starts to come, and the brain fog goes away, and the mental clarity that's kind of constant, it's the difficulty in changing old habits kind of speaks for itself once you start to see those successes.
Totally.
And I'll add for folks listening just some kind of additional thoughts on the whole following your passion thing. Sometimes following your passion can be supplementary to what you're already doing. Maybe you have a career that is fulfilling but doesn't check all the boxes. Sometimes if you can find the time, you can supplement that. For example, I've been teaching self-defense for 7 years now. This is not my career. Mostly it's volunteer work, because mostly I don't get paid. Only once in a while do I actually bring home a $20 bill or something for that. But it was a great supplement to my regular work. It's extremely fulfilling. I always wanted to be able to help people in a unique way. And there was a while where I thought about pursuing a career in law enforcement, and that didn't pan out. But being able to teach self-defense and hearing some of the success stories that a lot of my students have shared in not really even having to use self-defense techniques, but just how the confidence that they've built from taking self-defense training has helped them to take themselves out of situations they didn't want to be in, which is your best case scenario. It's extremely fulfilling. And so teaching self-defense isn't my job. It's not my career, but it's something that I do supplementary to the other things I do, and it's extremely fulfilling.
Amazing. I love that.
And that's something simple that I think a lot of people are still missing. A lot of people that are okay with kind of where they are in life, but there's just something missing. You know, if whatever it may be, if you want to go play a sport, right? It's okay to be an adult and go sign up for a basketball league.
Right.
Figure out what makes you happy and do that.
That's right. And I think we really need to give ourselves permission, right? To go out and do those things and to play. I think it was in your last episode, you and your guests were talking about like playing more. And like as adults, like we've really left that out, and that's really important. But yeah, there's lots of ways to get your interests into your life, whether it's even just listening to podcasts, watching movies, going out and just taking some time to invest in something that brings you joy can literally lift so much of the rest of your life.
Yep. And the age-old excuse, I don't have time. Well, schedule it in. You can schedule in all the other things, schedule in that podcast you want to listen to, schedule in going and taking that class you want to take in the evening, schedule in whatever it is that makes you happy.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
And when we were first talking, we talked about the role of intuition, and intuition is a self-serving thing, right? It's something that we have within ourselves that tells us this is what's right for me. And it's very easy to ignore that in favor of what's easy or what, to all appearances, is logical. But intuition is huge. And so you followed your intuition when you decided to pursue this, and you made it work. Intuition is something that I'm a big fan of. I've generally followed my intuition in life, and it's taken me some pretty fun and interesting directions. It's more complicated now that I am a husband and a father, because I can't just do the things that my intuition says, oh, go do that right now, because there are family decisions that have to be made when it comes to just about everything. But acknowledging that the intuition is there and being able to explore that, and if it seems right, make a case for it. That's something that a lot of folks probably don't give themselves enough opportunity to do that. How do you use intuition now? Because you've already created the path that you wanted to forge. So what is your intuition telling you these days, and where are you going with that?
Well, that's a really good question. And I really do love this question, because intuition is something that I swear by. It's like, without that, I am nothing. And everything that I've done in my life, well, I've done it because of my intuition. And I'm sure like it's just going to get better and better because of that. So currently what I'm doing is I offer one-on-one coaching, program coaching for entrepreneurs who want to get paid to speak. And every once in a while, because there's lots of different ways that I can do that, by creating a program, offering training and coaching. And whenever I go back to like, where am I going with my life? What do I want to do? It has to do with helping entrepreneurs use their voice to take up space and get paid to speak. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is helping women get paid to speak, and at higher rates. Because one of the things that we'll hear is that, for example, a client was speaking at a conference and weeks later spoke to a male speaker who was also at the same conference, and she learned that he got paid 3 times more than she did.
Wow.
And so And so I like to help support women in feeling confident in asking for that money in the first place. So a lot of the work that I do is led by my intuition, and I know if I'm out of line of my intuition, if I feel anxious at all or if I'm feeling unsettled, I will take a step back no matter where I am, even if I'm out and I'm busy and I'm, in front of a group of people or an audience of people. I'll take time, take some deep breaths to just reconnect with, like, where is that peace, where is that guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where it doesn't make sense in my head,
Okay.
and it feels good and it feels fun, and I will just do it. I'll just act on it. And
Good for you.
one one of the ways that I'll describe this, how I use it in my speaking as a speaker, is I will get flown out of province to present to other audiences. So, for example, I have to get ready for a talk that's happening in 2.5 weeks in Toronto. And there are times where if I try to spend too much time prepping, I could feel my intuition and my spirit is telling me to just chill, go and do what you're going to do. And if I have things on the list to do, which of course I always do, and then come back when you're feeling inspired and when you're feeling those ideas. So the difference is, instead of pushing the idea out or saying, I have to get this work done, I have to get this project done, and sitting and focusing and pushing it, which is frustrating, doesn't feel good. If I feel inspired to go grab a fancy coffee and go to the mall, I'll do it. And when I started doing that, I was like, this is crazy. I feel like this is not what a successful entrepreneur should be doing.
Yeah, you got to stay in the grind, right?
If I expect to get paid premium prices, I probably should stay in my office and suffer, because that's the way that I'm taught.
Right.
But I won't. I'll get up and I'll go. And sometimes it takes a whole day. And if it's something that needs to be done the next day, I swear to God, this is what will happen. I'll go and gallivant throughout the day. I'll come home, make dinner. And then in the evening, boom, everything just pours out. And I'm typing, or I'm recording, or I'm doing whatever. And everything always works out. And it's because I trust my intuition, and trusting is that, like, that's where the key is. And that does take some practice, because there might be times where you think you're trusting it, but your energy is so much in your fear that you're not letting it work out. You're still trying to control it. And I think when it comes to using your intuition, that's the difference, is allowing and trusting versus controlling, which is what we're taught. This is the way corporate business runs. This is the way, business in the world runs. And so there's, a bit of that practicing that has to happen with just allowing and trusting that your intuition is not going to lead you somewhere that you can't or shouldn't be. And your intuition is not going to get you in trouble. Like, this is divine guidance.
Unless you're just a terrible person, then it might get you into all kinds of trouble.
I don't know if that's intuition, if there's anything that's not right. But that's what's worked for me, and this is what I help entrepreneurs do. So the entrepreneurs that I work with are often mostly women, and they're women who they want to get paid higher fees speaking, and they want to create programming from their own ideas that have come from their own concepts and what they're talking about, and they want to sell it. And so that can feel insane, because it's like, who am I to just make up this program and take people through it and think I'm going to change their lives?
Yep.
But they're doing it, and they're making a lot of money doing it.
Well, you got to give yourself credit, right? Just like you have to give yourself credit to be able to coach people through this. People have to give themselves credit. These women have to be able to give themselves credit that they can do it, that they can get up there and create their own success. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, but crazier things have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about examining where your intuition is taking you, and trying and looking at it and trying and kind of figuring out, okay, well, what do I do with this? How do I make this work? And, kind of talking about how you're maybe mid thought or mid something, and you just have to take a step back and really look at it. And I'm a big fan of getting reps in, getting repetitions for everything, right? Obviously, starting from a fitness perspective, you have to get your repetitions in to create progress, but reps in everything, reps in your nutrition. You have to eat right on a regular basis, reps in, I have a sleep program that I have people go through to get their sleep dialed in, but you have to do it and do it and do it before it actually works. And then it works, and then it just becomes normal. And then it's no longer your wellness sleep routine, it's just your routine. Reps for learning thing, right? You want to learn a language, you got to get your reps in. You got to keep studying and practice and practice and practice. And following your own path, following your intuition, following your blueprint is no different from my perspective, because you have to do it and look at it and do it and look at it and do it and look at it. And maybe you make minor adjustments, but you have to keep doing it. You can't follow your intuition once and say, oh, that was hard, I'm just going to continue to do what I've always done or do what's expected of me. You gotta do it and try it, see how it goes, do it, see how it goes, make adjustments, keep going. And you can create your own success, and that's what you're doing, right? You've created your own success, and now you're helping people to create their own success in a specific way, in that you're a speaker coach, but it also really sounds like, you said you work with entrepreneurs, and it sounds like there's a pretty heavy component of life coaching in there as well.
Life coaching and business coaching for sure. Yeah. And I really love what you just said about reps, and like, you got to keep doing it, and like, check your form. Is your weight heavy enough? Right. All of that stuff. But when you were talking about reps and doing it again, it reminded me that another lesson that I share with the entrepreneurs that I work with is our brains have these neural pathways set, and these are set and connected when we're growing up. And so that's why people have such difficulty with change, because, well, my brain says that I need to do it this way.
Yep.
And so that's why even tracking the food and doing all this stuff that I don't really want to do is going to prevent you from moving forward. And when you're trying new things, and in my case with my entrepreneurs, it's even saying my fee out loud. If I want to increase my fee or double my speaker's fee, and I'm scared to say it, it's because my brain is telling me, no, that's too much.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of mindset work around the services that we're offering, the value that we're offering. And then we practice it. Tell me how much your fee is. And if I say no, you need to practice not getting upset. And that's where the confidence comes from in raising your fees, for example. But it's recreating those neural pathways and allowing them through the reps to actually have a chance.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can fully appreciate that. And I've seen studies on how you actually do create new synapses as you do things that you don't want to do, or you do new things, or you do the same things in a different way.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate the raising your fee challenge. As I was first getting into private training, people would ask me what I charge, and I would just go around the question in circles without really answering it, just because I was so hesitant to tell them what I thought I was worth. Well,
and we're taught not to talk about money, right? Don't ask people about money. And yet, and you would know, as someone who's offering a service, one of the first questions you get is, well, how much is it?
Yep.
And so one of the things that I like to help people learn through that conversation is, it is an investment, but are you ready to make the investment? Right? I did work with a fitness coach for a while, and I was like, ooh, that's a big number. And I had to decide, am I really serious about doing the work? Because I can have a gym membership. I can have 2 gym memberships, but it's
Right.
not going to do anything if I'm not invested in doing the work.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things that people in general struggle with when it comes to not just hiring a coach, but making that investment in commitment. Another thing that people will say to me is, how do you have the motivation to go to the gym every day? And maybe this is something that you've been asked. And I came to the conclusion that it's it's just something I decided that I was going to do. And it's just like I decided to show up on social media. I'm not just going to stop one day, because
Right.
that's not going to get me to my goal. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier in our conversation is, like, going to the gym should be about a lifestyle change. It should be about, I'm not just going to sign up for 3 months and hopefully get my dream body and then what? Right?
Right.
Like, this needs to be for life. And it's the same thing when it comes to investing in your speaking skills and your confidence skills. Is I might help entrepreneurs get paid and get on stage to speak, but their confidence is going to grow all across their lives. They're going to have better relationships because they feel more confident about expressing their needs and their wants in their relationships, and everywhere else in their lives. Like, my confidence compared to where I was before I started, like, I'm a totally different person.
Yep.
Friends from high school have told me, I don't know how you're doing what you do, because I was the person that sat at the back of the room. Don't bring any attention to myself. Don't look at me.
Yep.
Don't, like, you don't want to hear anything that I have to say. And yeah, people can change.
People
You
can
really want
change.
to.
Funny you mentioned the social media thing. So I am fairly active on social media these days, as I am wanting to share the knowledge that I have and continue to push my brand out there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really challenging for me. I used to have social media, but I was very intentional about having complete internet anonymity, in that all my
Mm-hmm.
social media was under fake names. And anytime, every once in a while, I'd just go scrub search engines for my name. And if I popped up anywhere, I would try to get myself off of there. And I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't want to be on the internet. And I really had to flip that switch with a lot of intention, and overcoming the visibility that comes with being just on social media itself, and
Mm-hmm.
not just putting my real name on there, but also putting my life on there to a degree. Obviously, there's a lot of things in my life that I don't put on there,
Mm-hmm.
but just putting myself on there and sharing my knowledge, and sometimes sharing some personal things, that was really hard for me. But I've had some phenomenal interactions since I started doing that. Maybe, and if 1,000 people look at a reel or something, maybe I only get engagement from a few, but once in a while I have some engagement that just, it's profound.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, aside from just, again, the visibility and being able to push my brand for my business out there, just knowing that once in a while, knowing that just through something as simple as a social media post, I've actually helped someone, is extremely fulfilling.
Yeah, yeah. It can surprise you sometimes, but that's how we communicate. That's how
Yeah.
people are going to hear about you.
Well, the nice thing about social media is, not all of them, but a lot of the people that see what you're putting out there see it because that's something that interests them.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to not get very far when I'm just talking to people that are in my everyday life about health and wellness, for example, because they didn't come to me wanting to talk about that. Once in a
Right.
while, I'll drop a knowledge bomb, and they'll be like, "Wow, that's really interesting. I'm gonna learn more about that," or "I want to learn more about that." But usually, it's just like, okay, they don't care, and that's fine, right? That's not probably why we were talking. If it was just sort of a chance encounter, or they're a friend or a family member, what have you, that's not something that they're putting themselves in my sphere to talk about, right? We're with each other because of whatever our connection is,
Mm-hmm.
not professionally. And so after years of not being able to influence the people that I really cared about, it's like, okay, well, who can I influence? And so
Right.
that's where I really allowed myself to go out there. But that was hard.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, I think when we start to rise as individuals, we generally want people all around us to rise with us. And then we realize, like, you get into something like you're doing now, and you realize, oh, I guess the best thing for me to do is to just keep doing me.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're interested and ready, then they'll come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it that people come to you? Do they? I feel like being at the point where you want something as niche as a speaker coach, someone really has to have already gotten to a point where they know they want to do something. They're just trying to figure out how to do it or how to be good at it. So how is it that those folks make it to you, and how do you carry them over that step of want to actually do?
Mm-hmm. I think the best thing that I've done is participated in social media consistently.
Okay.
So consistently meaning I've shown up as the same person for 10 years. And when I started, the same thing as you, I didn't know how much of myself I wanted to put on social media. So I don't often post about my sons. I don't post about my boyfriend, or, there's certain things that I just won't won't post about, because it's like, what does it have to do with my business is one of the questions that I'll ask myself. And then I always want to show up as that person who is showing my career. So a little bit, clips or whatever I can teach on showing up as a confident speaker, asking to get paid and get paid higher fees for speaking, being an expert in your field,
Mm-hmm.
and those sorts of things. And so I think for me, it's really been showing up on social media consistently
Okay.
and taking advantage of opportunities like this, but
Okay.
also just speaking in front of audiences.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work that I do when it comes to speaking to audiences is speaking about my experience. And so I'm really open about the times that I felt like a loser, or I hated myself. I didn't want to look in the mirror, or I never thought that I could amount to anything. Who would want to learn from me? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm always really open about my struggles and my challenges.
Yeah.
And I
You're a real
know
person.
I'm a real person. And I know from those experiences is that's how people can relate to me, because I can show up and talk about, like, hey, I've spoken at over 150 events. I introduced Michelle Obama. I got paid this much money. And I can talk about that, and people can't relate to it. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, good for you."
Right.
But when I can say, and to me this is how I invite people in, is, but it hasn't always been like that.
Okay.
Like, there was a day where I was sitting in the audience and I was looking up at someone on stage and saying, I wish I could do that. And even though I would try to take some steps to getting there, I would fall, because I would feel like, but they have a university degree. They live in this nice big house. They, all of the reasons why they were better than me. And again, when I share with openness those things, people come to me and they already know what I've been through. And then they see me show up on stage or social media, and I put together a program to say, here are some of the tools that you need to show up as a speaker. And I can offer that through my program. I have a Build Your Talk program. But when it comes to how do I make this a lifestyle, or how do I actually implement this, that's what we do through coaching. And it's the mindset work. It's showing up every day, treating your vision and your passion like a business,
Right.
and charging services, and showing up like you're the boss and you make the rules, which means you have to do the work and make those big decisions. And as much as I am the person who, if I wake up today and I just feel like I can't work, I'm feeling really anxious, or I'm really stressed about something, I need to go to the spa. Even though I'm that person, I get all my work done.
Yep.
And my clients never suffer. I over deliver everything I promise, because I just believe that that's the best thing that I can do
Yeah.
in the service that I provide. And I think that that's what makes me a really good coach, is I'm open about where I've been.
Yep.
I will tell you everything that I can to help support you through making the decision that you need to make for, you know, this next step and whatever it is that you're doing. And then support you and celebrate you as you're making those big decisions and making it happen.
It's kind of funny how these things all tie in together, right? You're a speaker coach, but in the path of guiding someone towards success, you really become a life coach. And I have a similar experience myself, as we talked about. But so the reason that people come to you is because you've made yourself relatable, right? They see you doing this great thing and they're like, wow, Jessica's doing that. I want to do that. But then they also see, okay, this is Jessica before she was doing this, and she figured it out and she got there. And now she helps other people get there.
Yeah,
I love
thank
it.
you for that recap.
Yeah. By the way, I'll just put out there into the world that speaking to a speaker coach, I'm very self-conscious about all of my my speaking mannerisms as we're chatting here.
You're doing great. I have no concerns.
You know, there's nothing worse than when I go do the go look at the post editing on these and I realize how many filler words I use.
It's a normal thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I thought I was great at speaking until I started getting written transcripts of me speaking. But thank you for the encouragement. Well, I am going to link to, well, you've got a lot of things. So you've given me your links, but you've got a great podcast, the Confidence and Communication podcast. You've got a TEDx talk. So I'll link to that as well as your social media and your personal website. Any last things before we wrap up?
Just a thank you to you. I really appreciate you having me on, and you've asked some really great questions, and I'm really happy to share the work that I do, and to be able to share that on your podcast is really an honor. So thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And thank you for helping me to be more comfortable giving myself permission to go get myself a latte after this chat instead of immediately working on some post editing.
Good
Well,
plan.
Jessica, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
And once again, folks, you can find the show notes at thesuperhumanblueprintpodcast.com, where I will give you all of the links so that you can find Jessica as well. Thanks, Jessica. Have a good one.
You too.